All right, howdy everyone. The time is 8:41 a.m. It is February 27th right now. This is another update from Great Lakes Weather, and this one is actually going to be rather quick, rather brief, but it is addressing a storm that is going to be impacting the entirety of the Great Lakes region. Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, northern areas are going to have pretty much all that ice and snow, and then southern areas are going to have a potential for some tornadoes, as a matter of fact, in particular areas. And we're also watching the potential for another winter storm to making its way into the Great Lakes region come Friday that could bring 6 to 8 inches of snow. So we'll have to see how that goes. Make sure to subscribe and stay updated. This is the only way that we can produce this content. So make sure that you subscribe and stay updated with regards to the events that will be coming up. All right, we are going to get right into this event with the latest weather information that we have. So let me pull this up here. I think it's having a little bit of issues. So there we go. Now you can see it. Alrighty, so here we have the Storm Prediction Center's weather outlook for this area. You have a slight risk for severe thunderstorms. Really, the tornado potential is going to focus across parts of Ohio at this current moment, whereas there's a 5% risk. The low-level wind shear is much better in place in that particular region than in Indiana and Illinois. This is all from a previous derecho that's already moved through Oklahoma that dropped several tornadoes and brought out some straight-line wind gusts of 105 to 110 miles an hour in some places. So very significant derecho occurred out west, and that is also going to be moving into our area come later this afternoon in a much weaker mode. Okay, so you're going to have some tornado potential, some damaging wind potential of 60 mile per hour wind gusts, maybe 70 miles per hour, and then some hail. This is going to occur between a time scope of 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. across much of this region before it moves off to the east and begins to die out. So that's the tornado potential that exists. The wind potential and hail potential is actually low, but there is a little bit of hail potential in some spots. They're not really going to draw out a map for that in particular in any way. But I do want to show some of the weather alerts that are currently in place across parts of the Great Lakes region. To do that, we have to go to pivotalweather.com. That information is available to you. You can just access this website. It is freely available, so we're going to just go to there and have a look at the weather alerts real quick. Really what's going on here on the HRRR models is you do have this system, this low pressure system. It has, has some relatively low pressure, 984 millibars. It's pretty low, but you do have heavy rain out in front of it. In fact, there is freezing rain falling in parts of Michigan right now. As I was driving in this morning, there was quite a bit of ice on the roadways. I actually almost slid past my intersection by accident. So the roads are rather slick in some spots, so it's something to be aware of if you're heading out on the roads. Really the place that will have that icy road potential though is anywhere from north of Kalamazoo, I'd say, so like Grand Rapids, Big Rapids, those areas. You're going to see possibly up to a quarter inch of ice, and you can see that on these current models, what's being shown here. That purple, it does indicate sleet, but I do think a lot of that's going to be in the form of ice as well, sleet and freezing rain in many particular cases. And it does show that warm layer kind of lower than normal. I do think that will be more along the lines of some rain produced from this event. And you can see that that low pressure system is starting to get a little bit deeper across parts of Iowa and Illinois as it moves in. And then you have this line of heavier rain. In fact, rainfall rates of 1.5 inches per hour reported in Chicago earlier today. So I think that's going to also move into this area, and it's going to last through quite a few hours of the day. In fact, we could see some rainfall totals that are relatively higher because of the heavy rainfall that's moving in. You do notice these cells that are starting to develop across parts of Ohio and Indiana. Now, if you do a sounding from the HRRR for this particular event, it does show, you can't really see that potential, but you do notice that there is low-level wind shear, and there is not really too much CAPE, though, in the atmosphere as well. The instability is low. I do think a lot of the severe weather that occurs will result from the storm motion that is in the atmosphere. Now you see that marginal severe potential as you go a little bit later in the day. You have low cloud bases. You have low top supercells capable of producing tornadoes here. CAPE value is about 100, so not really too much instability. It's really driven by the fact you have a lot of helicity in the atmosphere, storm relative helicity, and low-level wind shear in the atmosphere. So Ohio is really the target area for any particular form of tornado, and then damaging wind gusts could be possible across parts of Indiana southward. Now, temperatures down there could reach around the 60s as well, 63, mid-60s, and you do see that marginal tornado potential with CAPE values around 600 across that particular region. But there will be some reinitiation of some thunderstorms behind the rainfall, and it looks like some of those thunderstorms could reach parts of southern Michigan as well. So pretty much everywhere in the Great Lakes region is going to see something from this over the next several hours. So let's take a look at the weather alerts across parts of Michigan. You can zoom in. Really all that's out there right now is a winter weather advisory for parts of northern Michigan, and there's a wind advisory for parts of southern Indiana, southern Ohio for wind gusts of up to 50 miles per hour. Again, that's all associated with that very low pressure system that's drawing a lot of strong winds with it. And then you have that winter weather advisory for that icing potential anywhere north of a line from South Haven to Detroit. Areas northward are going to see that ice accumulation. The ice accumulation down south is going to end really quickly. It's probably going to melt off pretty quick, but that heavy rain is probably going to be continuing at the same time. Okay, so that's what the models are showing. Let me show you kind of the severe weather dynamics we have this afternoon with this event. I'm going to freeze frame it on hour 7 right here so you can see kind of how things are going to unfold. Let's get a severe weather overview of this. Looking at the surface-based CAPE values, here's the measure of instability in the atmosphere. You have CAPE around 700, enough to produce some thunderstorms, not really enough to produce intense thunderstorms, but again, you have those wind fields in place that could allow for those stronger storms to occur. And then you also have your, there is a little bit of convective inhibition out there in some spots, but it's not really broad, but you can see that it's low convective inhibition, a little bit of capping in there, but it's not really going to be enough, I think, to inhibit storms from taking off in this environment. Storm relative helicity is rather high ahead of this event. You do notice that very strong helicity is out in front of this storm, which could allow for some of that spin to produce some severe weather. Supercell composite values, you do have them, they're relatively low, but they're focused around parts of Ohio, parts of Dayton, Cedarville is also included in that as well. So you do have that setup for some severe weather down in that region. So just to be aware of, these cells will be rather small. They'll be low top supercells, but they will have the capability of producing some severe weather associated with them. All right, so let's look at the potential for ice accumulations farther north across parts of northern Michigan. So let's go to here, total ice. All right, let's go forward by the time we're past this event. You do notice that the HRRR is not really putting out too much ice, and that's why it's a winter weather advisory, not an ice storm warning. There's not really, the expectation for ice is not extremely high with this particular event. I'm going to go to a compare models. Let's compare all the models and see what each one says regarding this event. There's all of the models showing you what could happen. Here's the GFS focusing again north of Grand Rapids. Blend of models showing a bit more ice accumulation north of Grand Rapids and south of Big Rapids, about 1/4 of an inch. Doesn't look like it's going to get any higher than 1/4 of an inch though in many of the different spots that you see. But GFS does show some places a 1/2 inch. I do think that's an overestimate. I do think it's really going to stay below at least 3/10 of an inch. I think it's going to be below that particular amount. All right, so that's pretty much the event that's going to be occurring today. All right, I wanted to touch on that before the event actually really begins later this afternoon. But I do want to focus also on an event that will be coming later on today as well, or not later on today, later on this week. Friday, we do have the potential for a winter storm to unfold across parts of Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. So right now, the Euro model does put this event farther to the south, with including northern Ohio and northern Indiana. Okay, so that's going to be, there's going to be a lot of snow from this as well. Probably it's going to be probably over 4 inches of snow in many different spots. I do think we can't really put an estimate on how much snow places we'll see. You do notice as we go farther into the day, Friday 1 p.m., there is a heavy brunt of snow moving into southern Michigan as well. Now it's still uncertain how much we're going to see with that particular event. But progressing it farther to the northeast, you do see that by Saturday it's going to be moved out. So it's going to be fast moving. It's going to just last a day, but it's going to dump a lot of snow in a short period of time across parts of the Great Lakes region. So where the focus of snow totals will be, we'll do a quick look at that. I'm not really going to go too far into that though, because I don't want to get closer to the event before we actually make a forecast on that. But the focus of snow totals will be around northern Indiana probably, and then quite a bit of snow across southern Michigan as well, southeastern Michigan in particular, and northern Ohio. If we were to compare the models and see what all the models are saying, the GDPS showing a lot less snow and snow farther to the south. So some of these models are still working to come together. GFS is playing it a lot farther north, focused on southern Michigan. Euro's playing it about right in the middle, where you have the focus of snow in northern Indiana, northern Ohio, and then GDPS is playing it much farther to the south, including Cincinnati. Right now it says Cincinnati is going to get 16 inches of snow. I'm more for the middle play, where the Euro's putting it, where you can have the focus of the snow kind of in between where those two models are at. I think there's going to be a lot more alignment with that particular location later on during the next couple of days. So we'll have to see how that model unfolds. But that's pretty much what's going on. You have this storm that's moving through today that has the potential to produce some tornadoes across parts of Indiana and Ohio. And then you also have the freezing rain occurring in northern Michigan. The snow in the Upper Peninsula. We didn't really touch on the snow in the Upper Peninsula. We'll take a look at that real quick. Snow totals up there, 6 to 8 inches it's looking like across much of that area. Not really looking at too much more than that. I think it's going to be 6 to 8 inches. So it's going to move rather quickly through that area as well. And then we're watching that heavier snow event that could occur on Friday later on in the model. So that's pretty much the overall update. Hopefully this video was informational and helpful to you. Make sure to subscribe to stay updated. There'll be more coming out with this event later on. But that's all for now, and I will see you all a little bit later.